Warning! This book report review does contain spoilers. You've been warned.
Today we're going to blast into the future with George Orwell's book 1984. Future? 1984? How can that be? Well, it is the future if you write about it in 1948. Get it? 84? 48? Something like that maybe? Confused? Don't worry about it. Just grab yourself a cup of coffee or anything you want to drink and let's dive into 1984. So here we have George Orwell's Look into the Future. And folks, it ain't pretty. The story of 1984 is a prediction of how things will look in the year 1984 through the eyes of someone living in the year 1948. Now, all I remember about 1984 was, let's see, there's Live Aid, Springsteen's Born in the USA album, some really bad hair, the Pontiac Fiero. However, in this book, Orwell gives us his deeply disturbed and depressing as hell prediction of what he believed lied 36 years into the future. In his story, the world is divided up into 3 areas, and these areas always seem to be at war with each other. Now, no one really seems to know why or which of the other 2 areas is the enemy or the good guys. Friends and foes seem to change from year to year. However, the main focus and most famous message that this story delivers to us is that Big Brother is always watching. And no, this is not a concerned older sibling. Oh heavens no! Big Brother is the government. The government portrayed by this ultra cool looking Sean Connery looking type of dude whose image is posted everywhere. "We love you, Big Brother," is the preferred chant of the time. But now that I think about it, that's a little sexist. Now if this book was written today, they'd have to say Big Brother / sister is watching, or maybe just Big Sibling, or perhaps Big Purple Penguin is watching. But that just might take a little of the sting out of it, I would guess. Anyway, Big Bro is watching. We'll just go with that. And he's a pretty darn persistent one at that. Because he's watching to the point that telescreens are everywhere, making sure that everyone stays on the straight and narrow and does their daily exercises. Drop and give me 50. Oh yes, Big Bro sees you when you're sleeping and he knows when you're awake. So you'd best watch it. Because in 1984, there will be, or there was, some serious rules to abide by. And it's more than just how to wear that big goofy 80s hair, or how high to pull up those leg warmers, or how tight to put on those bandanas, or any of that other stupid stuff we did back then. But anyway, the party, as all authority is called, encourages families only for the sake of having kids who can then keep an eye on their parents. Seems as though most kids just live for ratting out mommy and daddy for the ever evil thought crimes. See what would happen if kids didn't have video games to play? We'd all be vaporized. Now sex has some weird titles such as supporting the party. I'm not sure it's that, but I know it's in here, but I am just way too lazy to look it up. Nonetheless, such a title hardly arouses my loins. So this explains why our hero, Winston, is such a poor, pitiful little guy. He works for one of the government ministries, eats crappy food, and gets no supporting the party of any fashion. And he's really feeling the physical ailments of his age. Good heavens, he's nearly 40. However, there is one ray of sunshine in this bleak, torturous world, and her name is Julia. Even in the party uniform, which probably doesn't include leg warmers, Winston notices her. But she really notices him. Now, the miniskirt had made a comeback in 1984, but that's a non-factor here, because Julia notices Winston to the point where she ever so casually dumps a note off to him that simply says, "I love you." Oh, indeed, quite the little icebreaker. Now, although Winston has never spoken to this young chick before, she's only 25 and apparently pretty hard up. Well, he decides that, he loves her as well. At least he feels this way after a few episodes of supporting the party with a hot, young, tantalizing Julia. Now, apparently, Julia is a bit of a hoe that has supported many party members, but now she is set on exclusively supporting Winston's party. Now, this leads to a torrid affair in the upstairs of a kindly old man's antique shop, where there are no telescreens and they are out of the sight of Big Bro. So here they support the party like rabbits on a regular basis. And one day, after a hot and steamy party support, Winston and Julia decide they have had enough of Big Bro and plan to join the underground enemy of Big Brother, led by some dude named Goldstein, or Goldstein, or, well, before they can figure out how to pronounce it, they meet up with this O'Brien fellow, who is an assumed leader of the underground revolt. And this is all out of the sight of Big Brother. Right? Now, of course, the moral of our story comes in as there is no out of the sight of Big Brother. O'Brien turns out to be a loyal supporter of the party. And what of that kindly old man who runs the antique store? Well, that treacherous old vermin is a member of the feared and dreaded Thought Police. Yes, Winston and Julia are pretty much screwed. Can't think of a term that the party used for that scenario, so we'll just stick with screwed. Winston is taken to a place where he is tortured to near insanity. Oh, no, not room 101. And he's tormented to the point where his teeth and his hair are falling out. In the end, Winston comes to the realization of how great Big Brother really is. Of course, after a few months of that kind of insane torture, he might have come to the realization that he was a prairie dog. And Winston's last thoughts were he had won the victory over himself. Oh, he now loved Big Brother, and he lived happily ever after. So Big Brother told him anyway. And he cranked up Van Halen's 1984 album, or maybe some Bananarama. And then he watched Footloose, or Splash, or Beverly Hills Cop, or any of those other cheesy movies that came out in 1984. And then he drove away in his Nissan 280ZX. Okay, I do believe that the 280 came out in 1982, where the 300 came out in 84. However, the 280 was just so much cooler looking. So my big brother told me anyway. Wow, my big brother told me? My big brother put thoughts in my head! Oh my gosh, he was controlling me! I actually prepped to read this book by watching the movie. Now, all I could find on YouTube was the 1956 version, which looks a little like a movie we should be watching on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yes, the 1956 version of our story did not look like the 1984 I remember. Not once did I see Duran Duran. Now, as I sit in front of my computer screen or telescreen to keep in feel with our story, I certainly hope Big Brother wasn't watching me, because I found myself nodding off. Good gosh! The movie dialogue between Winston and Julia just seemed to drag on until 2084. It just kept going on and on about the ministry, the party, Big Brother. Oh my gosh, such would have knocked out both puppets on Mystery Science Theater. Now, I found myself dozing off here mainly because I regarded the completely redundant, rambling crap about the party's position on all matters pretty worthless. But maybe that was the whole point. Lo and behold, this held true with the book as well, because it went on about the ministry, the party, Big Brother, and on. Perhaps a little Duran Duran might have livened up this story a little. And Big Brother proclaimed, "Her name is Rio, and she dances on the sand, just like that river twisting through a dusty land. And when she shines, she really shows you all she can." And that's all I can remember from that song. Rio, Rio, da 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 da. Characters. Nothing too exciting here. They were all pretty much the same dull, dreary folks. But wait a minute. Wasn't that the whole point of the party? Yeah. They wanted to make everyone the same dull, dreary folks. Well, mission accomplished, Big Brother. Yeah, poor Winston was such a pathetic soul. For starters, he blamed himself for his mother's disappearance. Not only that, but he had been part of a loveless marriage and now had a boring as heck job. In fact, he was pretty boring. Just what did Julia ever see in him? And he was also nearly 40, or near the age of elder death. Apparently, in 1984, 40 is, or was, the new 80. I did find it interesting how Winston and Julia kept confessing their undying love for each other, only after they had just basically met. Huh? And as for Julia, I had to feel a little sorry for her. Apparently, she was bored out of her mind and hooked up with the first available guy she saw. Winston. I mean, really? See what happens if you don't have cable? One final note. I guess I kind of related to the Prowls in the story more than anyone. Not that my life is all that much different than Winston's in a lot of ways. And who were the Prowls? Well, they were the lower class, uneducated, working stiffs. And for some reason, the Prowls seemed to be the happiest people in the world. Go figure. Am I saying that right? Prowls? Pros? Prees? Pros? Prowls. Oh well, they don't care. Enjoyment? How can you not enjoy a deeply depressing and disturbing story about human despair, brainwashing, and sick, torturous mind control? Why do all these futuristic stories have to be so gosh darn depressing? Do writers have no faith in the human race at all? Why can't we have futuristic stories where everyone's dancing around, holding hands, and singing happy songs? You know, like the Who's in Whoville. That's what I want the future to look like, not some freaking mind-controlling government who trains all the little kids to spy on their parents in hopes of having mommy and daddy vaporized. Okay, in all fairness to Mr. Orwell, he did write this in 1948. So, let's think about what was going on during that time in history. Now, Europe had just been torn apart by World War II, with some pretty vivid memories of World War I probably still lurking about. Now, his home country, England, had been bombed back to 1684 by Hitler. And now Russia, who had been England's ally during the war, now had their eyes on taking over Eastern Europe. Or maybe even the world. Okay, so maybe the future did look a little bleak. But give me a break, George! Didn't he see the 1925 movie Metropolis? Yeah, it too was a dark, depressing look at the future. The future of 2010, but it did end on a positive note. So in the words of George Michaels from 1987, you gotta have faith. And just for the record, 1984 was not that bad of a year. How can I be depressed by a year that put out such albums as Springsteen's Born in the USA, Bob Marley's Legend, U2's Unforgettable Fire, Prince's Purple Rain, Van Halen's 1984, Talking Heads Stop Making Sense, Don Henley's Building the Perfect Beast? I like this part here where it says, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. Pretty profound. Okay, we're talking about the length. You can tell it's not a very big book. It's well under 300 pages, at least my version is anyway. However, it still seemed to take me forever to read it. This is probably due to the fact that I kept dozing off while reading it. Yeah, there were some parts in this book that just bored the living bejesus out of me. And I think those parts started somewhere around, well, page 1 or 5, and ended somewhere around 267 maybe? Okay, I realize some people think that 1984 was probably one of the greatest books ever written. And it did have parts in it that were okay. However, never once was I ever on the edge of my chair just reading, just couldn't wait till the next page. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? No, that never happened. My reading was more like, okay, next Wednesday, where'd my book go? Oh, there it is. Oh well. That's why I felt, read it yourself. It's not that bad. Okay, I realized way back in 1984, we might have thought we were living in the electronic communication age, but compared to now, wow. I just have to wonder what George Orwell would think if he stepped into a world where everyone now really does have a telescreen in their house. That is, if you want to call a PC or an iPad a telescreen. And kids do occasionally turn their parents into the authorities. Maybe not for thought crimes, though. So, here we are, 30 years after 1984. And we have to wonder, is Big Brother really out there watching? However, with everyone carrying around one of these things, I'm not so sure Big Brother is the government. Big Brother just might be us. Ooh, kind of makes you want to go and lock yourself in a room with no telescreens or phones and grab one of these old-fashioned things. It can't watch you. I don't think it can. Oh well. Just go read a book. Read a book. Oh, wow. My big brother called me. Maybe he is watching me.